versus Capcom 3. That's right, the third chapter. The superheroes are all here. Who will rise to the top?
Yeah.
He's saying somebody got to make some moves.
Yeah.
Do your job. Now, anytime you hear a player say, that's not my decision, you break the saying, you got to do your job up there.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, what do you want the Timberwolves to take from how this postseason went?
I think it's important to not overreact because I actually think they did phenomenally well. They handled Denver, okay? They lost DiVincenzo. Legooooo has been hurt most of this second round, and Ant's been hobbled. So for them to get to 6 games against a phenomenal team, like, let's not throw everything out here. Let's not overreact. Now, habits, were we 100% happy with? Can we improve there? Can we improve the roster? Absolutely. But you also have to look at it. This is a Western Conference that's getting to becoming a 2-horse race here. So, like, two extremely talented deep teams with futures and assets and all sorts of growth capital and potential. So you can't get too carried away, and you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think they have to look at this thing this summer, see how can they meaningfully improve their roster, and then start to build those habits back up. But this is a team that's done well the last 3 years. They did very well this year considering their injuries. They're well coached, and they have Ant. Ant is a cornerstone. He's a guy like Wemby doesn't really bother Ant the way he bothers almost everybody else. So I think there's a lot of things they can build on here. They just got to make sure they're very strategic, and I don't know how much flexibility they have off the top of my head, but these are big, big decisions because it has gotten so tight at the top. Like they seem to use something. I thought they were great in the playoffs. They competed. They were a great first round, but they should have never fallen to whatever they felt was 16 to see a tough Denver and go to a long series and fight through all that with fan hobbles. They were just, for me, another team are consistent all regular season. They lose some games, they have big leads with like a minute left. And, I mean, that Phoenix game comes to mind when they were up 7 or 8 and they lose a lead like that in a minute. And they have numerous of those games. And I just think that's where it starts. They have some turnover issues all year long, some inconsistency. Maybe they add a point guard that could get some relief for Ant. They add a lot of his play at times. So we'll see. But I agree with Steve. They have a lot of good pieces there. Unfortunately, Julius couldn't show here in the second round. They really needed him to step up here in the second round. He just didn't get enough. But they got good pieces, and we'll see what they add this summer to keep improving their roster.
Yeah, we'll see what unfolds in the offseason. Would you have something to say?
I feel that your point about this sort of becoming a 2-horse race is very true. But what we're seeing right now in the NBA is you can't really have weak links on the floor. Like Oklahoma City, sure, you can say, okay, you know what, they're shooting, but defensively, 1 through 5, they all guard. San Antonio, 1 through 5, they all guard. So when you think about putting a roster together, if you're Minnesota, it's like trying to figure out where exactly you attack it. Because the rest of the roster is really in the West. They are not quite there yet. So I don't know the answers to it, but it is a really interesting thought of how you go from, okay, we got this team, Rudy, and obviously the cornerstone, Rudy, a defensive-minded player, and like what little tweaks do you make? As you were saying that, I was trying to think about what the answer is, and the problem is these two teams are so good, there's not just a clear-cut answer.
And just to add some context, if you are thinking about the offseason, and Gobert, Randall, McDaniels will be all under contract next season. Io, Bones, Conley, all free agents, and of course, Jonathan Blessing out for a lot of next season, so we'll just have to see how it unfolds there. But the Timberwolves season is over after a loss to the Spurs tonight. And you know the tradition here on Nightcap. We have our favorite tradition. It's time to say our official goodbye. Just going to keep
taking the church back home.
The floor is yours.
Is it really?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Wednesday.
Back
We do
again.
this every week.
When the Spurs did a 6-year playoff throughout this season, and you now make the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2017.
I thought Shea yesterday was exceptional.
Yeah.
I thought he had the best game anyone had in the series he had yesterday. I thought he was great down the stretch. And he's obviously a great player. I said all year long I thought he was the MVP. Let me say that on front end. Secondarily, I have no problem with how OKC defends. I've used this analogy before. I'll use it again. It reminds me of the Legion of Boom Seahawks, where they're like, we're going to foul on play one and basically tell the refs, you're going to call a foul every play? If not, we are setting the level of physicality, and we are so that part. I think Dort can be a dirty player at times. That's in a separate bucket. But the physical defense that Dort plays or Caruso plays or any of those guys, I have no problem with it. The flopping stuff, I don't care how many times OKC fans want to send me Shea's free throws per game or where he ranks historically. The problem with arguing Shea is not public enemy number one on the flopping and histrionics epidemic is that the games are televised and we all watch it and we know there is a visceral negative reaction between the difference between here's what I'll say, Colin. I think fans are less bothered by a guy going up for a shot, getting fouled, and exaggerating the contact. I think that's in one bucket. A different bucket entirely, and this is where people get upset with Shea, is where they feel like very often he had no goal of actually making the shot or even the goal was to trick the refs or draw the foul. So I don't think Adam Silver needs to actually change any rules. I think he needs to enforce the anti-flopping rules that are on the books. And I also think that that should be ramped up and it should be done consistently because I think guys will be embarrassed if they are getting technicals or called out for flopping, and I think that would fix itself.
So I want to talk, the Knicks are obviously a great story. They're playing well. Jason Timpf was on the show yesterday, and it's like Mike Brown, it worked. We can bang on James Dolan, but it worked. A lot of people didn't like it, but it worked. Offensively, they're like averaging. It's a different basketball team.
Yes.
But Boston's a fascinating team because I really thought after they won, when they broke through, they gave one away to the Warriors, they break through, and they were great analytically both sides. But I've always said the gap between Tatum and Jaylen Brown is much closer, and Brown's a more aggressive athlete. Tatum's just more beautiful and fluid as an athlete. And now with all the cap stuff, you watch them and you're like, man, the Knicks matched up with them well last year. I think the Knicks are much better than them this year. Were we all fooled by the brilliance of Brad Stevens that if you look right now at the Knicks and you look at the Celtics, there's no question who has more good players.
And listen, Boston's not the team that won the championship in Boston. Had Drew Holiday, had healthy Kristaps Porzingis, had Al Horford to go along with Tatum, Brown, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard. Now you just have Tatum, Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. You don't have the rest of those pieces. And so they clearly need to retool in that regard. I disagree with you that Tatum and Brown are super close. I think Jaylen Brown is a top 20 player who had a top 15 season. I think Jason Tatum is a top 10 player who has, who will consistently be like 6th or 7th in the league. That's where I see him. But regardless of that, if I'm Brad Stevens, I look at him like, okay, last year, we lost to the Knicks. We then lost to the Pacers. We then lost to the Thunder. So how close were we last year? We lost to the team that lost to the team that lost to the team. This year, we lost to the Sixers, who just got clocked by the Knicks. Vegas thinks the Knicks are going to get beat soundly in the finals. Now they would be getting to the finals. So how close are we really? So in a weird way, Colin, The Knicks' annihilation of Philly, to me, makes it more likely that Giannis is a Celtic. Because I think when you see the team that beat you get swept in round 2, you are more likely to say, we have to make a major move. And you know what can maybe fix our addiction to the three-point shot? Bring in Giannis Antetokounmpo. And whether that is Jaylen Brown for Giannis straight up, or whether that is Jaylen Brown to Atlanta, where he can have his own team. Atlanta sends picks, including Milwaukee's own, back to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee sends Giannis to the Celtics. I think that's where this is headed. I would bet right now that Giannis's next team is the Celtics, and that Jaylen Brown is the centerpiece of that trade, either back to Milwaukee or down to Atlanta.
That's exciting. Okay, let me have a couple question. You know, this happens all the time, where Sacramento Kings had a great team for years and years, but they couldn't get past a great Laker team. Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods doesn't exist, Phil Mickelson's the top 3 golfer of all time. Like, you have these things. Kansas City and New England have kept out a lot of good teams, and one of them is Buffalo. And for years, it's been easy to pick on them. The Buffalo Bills, Brandon Beane, kind of defensive and has taken shots. And I'm looking at the Athletic the other day, because I thought they had a really good draft, Buffalo, again, and I looked at their offensive roster, and I'm like, kind of great, and the Athletic had them as their 3rd best overall roster, even above Philadelphia. Now, some of that is because part of the roster is quarterback, and quarterback is a bigger part of the roster than any other position. But now I look at Buffalo, and I think they're actually undervalued. We've picked on them for so long. The most undervalued team in the league is the Buffalo Bills. Am I nuts?
No, I don't think you're nuts. I also think, you know, this is, what is it, middle of May? Pretty annual tradition. The Bills are the team to beat America. Look at how much talent. And then when they end up falling short, it's, well, I mean, how's Josh Allen supposed to win with that type of talent? I mean, we can set our clock to it, right? In the offseason, the Bills and Ravens, they're juggernauts. They have all of this unbelievable skill everywhere. And then come January, it's like, you know what? Turns out I didn't love that roster as much as I once did. Now, with that said, I'm on the record that I think Josh Allen eventually is going to break through. I think he is going to deliver Buffalo their only, their first championship as a franchise. I don't know if this year with rookie head coach is the year I would pick them to break through. And I also don't know how much the loss of Brandon Beane is going to hurt them defensively. But we found out yesterday the first Thursday Night Football Amazon game is Bills-Lions. And I do think this is a critical moment for those two teams. It's very interesting. Neither franchise won a championship. Both teams feel like the window's been open for this half decade, in the Bills' case longer, and they haven't even made the Super Bowl yet. So I think Buffalo wins the division again this year. It bounces back in that after not winning it last year. I think Josh, will be a perennial MVP favorite each and every year, and I think they'll be really good. I don't know if I think they have, a top 3 roster, and I don't know that they would be my pick to win the AFC. I got to survey the landscape, Colin. I'm leaning one way with an AFC team, but I've got to survey the full landscape before I see exactly where I want to go.
Nick Wright, good seeing you, buddy.
You too as well. Talk to you soon.
Physically reliable. So usually when you have a superstar, it's like certain stars are like what I would call championship stars. And that like Giannis in his prime, obviously LeBron, Michael Jordan, Magic, Kareem, they're championship stars. And then there are stars who are just otherworldly talented. Carmelo Anthony, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, just great. I'm not sure they're winning players. The feeling's always been that Luka is in that championship run. And I'm like, he may just be the other run. Because the run with Michael and LeBron and Magic, they didn't get just to a final. Didn't LeBron get into 9 straight? Magic got to 9. Russell wins 11 rings. There's a big difference between Russell Duncan, Kobe, LeBron, those kind of stars, because the Hall of Fame basically has championship-level stars and then just crazy talented guys who don't necessarily make teammates better, but they're amazing. Which one's Luka in? Well, he got to a final. We're talking about LeBron made 8-9 straight finals. Which one's Luka? Doesn't defend, not reliable, great offensive player. Is he more mellow, which has always been my contention, than a LeBron? People tend to think all great players are championship players. No, they're not. Steph Curry is. Steph Curry was willing to bring on Kevin Durant. Think about Steph Curry. Steph Curry was willing to bring Kevin Durant on that would clearly take away shots and prestige from Curry's game. I mean, Carmelo Anthony got insecure when Jeremy Lin got hot for 3 weeks. So you tend to think, oh, Luka, he's in that championship group. No, LeBron's in that group. And now you're asking LeBron, hey, LeBron, backseat, we need you to be the third wheel. Yeah, but he was easily the best Laker in the series. Like, not even close, right? Here was LeBron after the loss.
We fell a little short, obviously, but I mean, I'm not looking at, my year as a disappointment. That's for damn sure. Especially, I was put into some positions that I've never played in my career before. Actually, in my life. I've never been a third option in my life.
But he was a great third option. And he put his arms around it. It was amazing. So let's bring on Nick Wright. First things first. All right, so let's get right to the point. You, today, hypothetically, you...
Continue. 9, 8, 7,
You're going to sign.
6, 5.
So if you had to move him eventually, you could. Those are kind of easy ones. You're not going to let him go for nothing. You're going to sign off.